Hello. I'm a woman in my 30s whose life was saved from a disastrous marriage by a single, revealing spark. I made a terrible mistake in marrying my husband. He was a man who, until the very end, could only think of himself. And the woman who was my mother-in-law was someone who believed her own child was the only person in the world who mattered. The ones who dragged everything into ruin weren't me. It was them. People who lived their lives driven by their own greed, incapable of considering anyone else. I tried my best, pointing out their faults one by one, hoping for a change. But I learned the hard way that you can't fix a person who is fundamentally broken. Let me tell you what happens to people who only know how to look out for themselves. I've lived a life that was tough enough for me to call myself a fighter. I never had choices. Survival was my default setting. My family life was unstable. My father was a day laborer, living one day at a time, and my mother was constantly sick. He passed away when I was in elementary school. After that day, my mom, who had never worked a day in her life, suddenly became the breadwinner. She was always a fragile person, and her health worsened after having me. I remember when I was little, the neighbors would say she looked so thin and pale that a strong gust of wind might blow her away. She was always resting at home, trying to recover, but in that situation, she had to start working at a diner to make ends meet. Every day, she came home looking utterly exhausted. One day, she returned with a severe burn on her hand. I begged her to go to the hospital. "Mom, it's okay," she said. "What do you mean? You should have gone straight to the hospital." "Let's go now. I'm fine. A little burn like this will heal if I just put some ointment on it at home. Going to the hospital for something like this costs a fortune. It's okay." Watching her grit her teeth, soaking her hand in cold water and applying nothing but a cheap ointment, I learned from a young age what it meant to have no money. I also learned that a life of odd jobs would never lead to anything better. Mom would work until she collapsed from exhaustion, rest for a bit, then go back to work, only to collapse again. We lost the security deposit on our apartment and had to move to a monthly rental. Eventually, we ended up in a tiny, single room in a rundown building. "Mom, do we not have a home anymore?" "We can afford the rent here, sweetie. I'm sorry, your mom's not capable enough. Just bear with me for a little while. I'll work hard and we'll get a real apartment again." At the time, no one knew that a little while would turn into years. We ended up on government assistance, a fact my school made painfully public, which I resented. I often wondered why my family had to be so poor, why it had to be us. I even blamed my parents. Then, at some point, I realized that just working hard doesn't guarantee a better life. Just enduring and surviving changes nothing. That's when I had my awakening. I decided to take control and fight for my own life. Right after graduating from high school, I started working as a golf caddy. It was physically demanding, but the pay was good. I chose it because my earnings were directly tied to how hard I worked. And I made good money. In my early 20s, I was earning far more than my peers. With that money, I could finally support us and, for the first time, feel a sense of security. My mom and I moved out of that single room and got our own rental apartment. We slowly upgraded, moving into better places over time. I'll never forget what my mom said one day. "Thanks to my daughter, I get to live in a nice place with a proper lease. Just you wait, Mom. I'll get bigger and buy you a house one day." I was 23 years old. Looking back, that was the most stable and happiest period of my life. Once we had a decent apartment, I finally felt like I could breathe. A thought occurred to me. Maybe now I can get the education I missed out on. So, at a later age than most, I enrolled in college. Having started later than everyone else, I was determined not to give up easily. Even while attending school, money was tight. I had to cover tuition and living expenses simultaneously. I attended classes during the day and worked in insurance sales in my free time. Juggling school and work was physically draining, but it meant I never wasted a single moment of my day. At first, it was hard to bring up the topic of insurance with people. You know how most people cringe at the word. The thought of, "Oh, she's here to sell me something," made it difficult to even start a conversation. But my senior colleagues gave me great advice. They told me to learn to listen first, before I even started talking. They said the priority was to understand who the other person was. As I practiced this, my approach to people slowly changed. They also taught me that you have to offer something people actually need, not just see them as a way to make money. Taking these lessons to heart, my attitude naturally shifted. I no longer had to force a sale. Trust started to build first. As a result, my sales numbers became more and more stable. One day, I was handling the personal insurance for a CEO of a company. After our consultation, he said something that stuck with me. "You know, I usually have a prejudice against people in the insurance business, but you're different. I can feel your sincerity. My company is a startup, so we don't have many employees, but they all work incredibly hard. I'd like to buy each of them an insurance policy as a gift. Could you handle it for all of them?" "Really? Thank you so much. I'll take full responsibility and make sure everything is handled meticulously to honor the trust you've placed in me." And just like that, one job led to another. One person's trust connected me to another, and in the process, I earned both money and valuable relationships. After graduating from college, I felt my experience and values would be a good fit for the banking industry, so I got a job at a bank. The stability of a regular monthly salary brought me incredible peace of mind. I was 27 at the time. I didn't just spend my paycheck, I managed it carefully, dividing it between an emergency fund and an investment fund. I was preparing for the unexpected, but I wasn't letting my money sit idle. Slowly but surely, I grew my assets. Eventually, I was able to buy a small condo in my own name. It was in an old, walk-up building with no elevator, located in a less expensive suburb of Chicago. The price wasn't high, and I knew it probably wouldn't appreciate much. But I didn't care. The joy of having a place that was truly mine for the first time was more than enough. On moving day, my mom walked through the condo, looked around, and started to cry. "Thanks to my daughter, I'm living in such luxury. Thank you." "No, Mom, it's because you raised me so well. Let's be happy here from now on." Life had finally become what I would call stable and normal. I was living a quiet life with my mom, managing our expenses within my monthly salary, without any grand ambitions. Then, one day, I started to think, maybe it's time to enjoy life a little. So, for my summer vacation, I went on a short trip abroad with some friends. Due to a scheduling conflict with our flights, I had to stay at a hostel for one night, where I naturally mingled with other travelers. We were all just sharing the same space, so we said hello and ended up having dinner together. That evening, just before I was set to leave, some new American guys arrived. It was nice to meet fellow Americans so far from home. As luck would have it, I was seated next to one of them, and we started talking. He was 2 years older than me and worked in the international accounts department for a company back home, which meant he was often sent on short-term assignments overseas. He said he had just finished a project and was using his vacation time to travel with friends before heading back. We talked about all sorts of things, and then he cautiously asked, "It feels like fate that we met like this. Would it be okay if I contacted you when we're back in Chicago?" "Sure. Let's grab dinner sometime in Chicago. Here's my card. Get in touch." I gave him my number without much thought, but he really did call me the moment he got back to Chicago, and we met up that very day. Even though we had only met a few times, our conversations flowed effortlessly. It felt like we just clicked without even trying. Our meetings quickly became more frequent, and before I knew it, we were a couple. We dated until I turned 30, and when I was 31, talk of marriage came up naturally. We began to prepare for our wedding. We met each other's families. On my side, it was simple, just my mom, who gave her blessing without hesitation. Then I went to meet his parents. Both were there, along with his younger sister. The atmosphere was pleasant enough. When we started talking specifics about our newlywed home, I mentioned that I had already secured a pre-construction condo in a new development in a Chicago suburb that was being offered at a great price. However, we would have to wait about a year and a half before we could move in. We considered waiting until then to get married, but at our age, we didn't want to postpone things once we'd made the decision. So we decided to get married, live in a 2-bedroom studio apartment for a while, and then move into the new condo. For this reason, my future in-laws seemed to view me quite favorably. After all, how often does the bride-to-be come with a house? Our daughter-in-law is bringing a home with her. How impressive. She must be very frugal and sensible. I just enjoy personal finance. I developed a good sense of money from an early age. You have no idea how smart she is, my fiancé chimed in. She's so good at her job she even won an Employee of the Year award. Wow, that's amazing, his mother said. They say if you're good at one thing, you're good at everything. I can see that's true. The compliments continued during that first meeting. But then, my future mother-in-law's final comment felt off. You know, nowadays, when the husband is a catch, the woman's side often contributes more. It feels just like that, which is great. It really boosts my standing. Instantly, I felt a subtle disconnect. Her words made it sound as if my achievements weren't the result of my own choices and hard work, but rather a natural consequence of her son being so great. It was as if she was under some grand delusion. But it was our first meeting, and I didn't want to sour the mood, so I let it go. I didn't know then that this wasn't just a slip of the tongue, but the starting point of a recurring pattern of thought. Shortly after we got married, my husband, Mark, had to go overseas again for work. He said it would only be for about a month. As newlyweds, I was disappointed, but I understood it was for his job. A little while after he left, he called to say things were taking longer than expected. It might be more than a month. He must have told his mother the same thing, because a few days later, she showed up at our apartment unannounced. "You're living here all alone. Isn't the rent on this place a waste of money?" she began. "You're newlyweds, and it's not good for a woman to live alone in a studio apartment. Just move into our house." It wasn't a suggestion. It was practically an order. I had no idea my mother-in-law was like this. It felt like a side of her she had hidden before the wedding was suddenly revealed the moment Mark was gone. "What do you mean, it's not good for a woman to live alone in a studio?" My daughter says that when women live alone in places like this, people assume they're, women of a certain profession. Even if that's not the case, it's dangerous. Our apartment was in a nice area with fairly high rent. That seemed to bother her, as she continued, bringing up the cost. She kept repeating that it was a waste, a needless expense. "I can comfortably afford this rent, ma'am. We have our own way of living, and I don't think it's something for you to decide for us. Besides, this isn't just any studio, it's in a residential building. It's not an environment where people would make those kinds of assumptions. Most of our neighbors are families. On top of that, she seemed to think you could just move out of a rental apartment whenever you wanted, as if there were no lease agreements or consequences. She was completely ignorant of the realities of renting. When I pointed this out, her voice grew louder. Rent is no small amount. This is why young people these days can't save money. Isn't all that money coming out of my son's pocket? If you saved it all, it would be a huge sum. And you're not bothered by wasting money living here alone? Just move in with us. We'll save on rent, and I'll clean your room, cook for you, and do your laundry. Isn't that great?" I was speechless. As she ranted, I had somehow been transformed into a daughter-in-law who was squandering her son's money. For a moment, my mind went blank. Then she delivered her final line. "When a woman gets married, she moves in with her husband's family. That's how it used to be." I decided to stop being polite. "Ma'am, when your son gets married, shouldn't you treat his wife with a certain level of respect? Perhaps because I'm your daughter-in-law, you feel I'm beneath you. But I am your son's wife, not someone you can boss around." Her face hardened instantly. "What? Boss around? Are you mistreating my son?" "I have never mistreated him. But your behavior today gives me plenty to talk to him about. And please, stop worrying about the rent on this apartment. The time I've wasted with you today is far more valuable. If you hadn't come, I could have been studying for a certification to get a raise and a promotion. I have no intention of leaving this apartment, and I have no intention of moving in with you. Now, please leave. I need to study. And I have no idea where you got the idea that I can't save money. I bought a brand new condo with my own money. So please, stop being ridiculous and go home." With that, She glared at me for a long moment before leaving without another word. Frankly, there was nothing left to say. After she left, I wondered, why is she suddenly making such a big deal about the rent? Is she short on cash? I told Mark exactly what had happened. He said he flew into a rage at his mother, yelling at her for coming to me with such nonsense while he was away. After that, she didn't bring it up with me directly again. About a month and a half later, Mark finally came home. He seemed to be treading lightly for the first few days, like someone returning to an unfamiliar place. We didn't bring up the past. We didn't talk much, but we started sharing meals and getting back into the rhythm of daily life. It seemed like we were settling back into our newlywed routine. Not long after, I found out I was pregnant. When I told him, Mark and his mother were overjoyed. The whole family atmosphere changed, and the previous unpleasantness was swept under the rug as if it never happened. Mark talked about the baby constantly. When the baby's born, I'll carry them everywhere. I'll give them baths, and when they cry at night, I'll be the one to get up. All you have to do is have a healthy baby. Really? You're not just saying that? Promise me. I should record this. You better keep that promise. You can count on me. You're going through 9 months of this. It's the least I can do, right? We were filled with excitement, imagining our new life with our baby. I worked right up until my due date. I was at the office the day before and started my maternity leave as I left that evening. Miraculously, my contractions started right on schedule. We rushed to the hospital, and I gave birth to our child. While I was recovering at the postnatal care center, we realized our studio apartment would be too small for a baby. So, Mark found a larger 2-bedroom apartment for us to rent. He handled the move while I was away, so I came home from the center to our new place. We thought we were prepared, but once we started living with a baby, a whole new set of problems emerged. When Mark went to work, I was left alone with the baby all day. My body hadn't fully recovered, and I had no idea how exhausting it would be to care for an infant 24/7. Our baby was one of those who would only sleep while being held. The so-called back sensor was real. The moment I put our baby down, the crying would start. So I had to hold our child all day long, which became physically overwhelming after just a few days. At one point, the tears just started falling. One night, I had just managed to get the baby to sleep and was dozing off myself when it was time for another feeding. The baby started crying. Until then, I had handled all the night feedings myself, trying to be considerate of Mark's work. But that night, I felt so physically ill that for the first time, I woke him up. "Honey, the baby's crying. Can you make a bottle?" "Honey! Honey!" I had to call his name several times. When he didn't stir, I shook him gently and asked again. He shot up in bed with an irritated grunt. "Ugh, damn it." He stomped to the kitchen to make the bottle, muttering curses under his breath. The moment I heard him, the only thought in my head was, what an asshole. He brought the bottle back, and as I held our baby and fed them, I finally said what I was thinking. "Look, I know you're tired and it's a pain, but this is the first time I've ever asked you to do this. How can you react like this? It's for your own child. Just do it yourself. I have to go to work tomorrow, you know that. The baby's crying already keeps me up every night. Do you have to make it worse by ordering me around? You're being cruel. I just gave birth. I've been holding the baby all day. I only woke you up because I feel really sick today. I know you have work. I wasn't trying to bother you on purpose. How could you be like this? Stop being such a martyr. Other wives do this all by themselves. Why are you always whining? I don't wake you up every time. This is the first time. Is losing a little sleep really enough to make you this angry?" The argument didn't end after the bottle was finished. We fought through the early morning hours, finally falling silent as dawn broke. Mark left for work with a tired, angry face, and I started my day, sleep-deprived, holding the baby once again. After that night, Mark started coming home late, often close to midnight. He'd say he had a drink after work because he didn't want to come home. Was it normal for a man with a newborn at home to be out drinking until midnight? We had another huge fight about it. The next day, he came home earlier but wouldn't even look at me. He suddenly grabbed his pillows and blankets and moved them into the spare room with the computer. Just like that, without a word, we started sleeping in separate rooms. I didn't want to talk to him either, so I let him. I stayed in the master bedroom with the baby. Even though we were in the same house, he barely spoke to me, and I could feel him avoiding me. It wasn't just me he was avoiding. It was the baby, too. He wouldn't look at our child even when they cried, acting like he was intentionally keeping his distance. A few days later, my mother-in-law showed up unexpectedly with some food. As soon as she walked in, she saw the separate bedding arrangements and the tense atmosphere and sighed. A man is what a woman makes of him. If you just sit around in sweatpants all day, he'll lose interest. You should dress up a little, even at home. Men are visual creatures. Hearing that, I couldn't hold back anymore. "Ma'am, your son cursed me out because I asked him to make a bottle for the baby one time. I wasn't the one who decided we should sleep in separate rooms. He took his things and moved out on his own." "Don't say these things to me. You should be scolding your son. You have a daughter too. When she has a baby, I hope you tell her the exact same things you just told me. As a father, he needs to learn how to behave and how to treat his wife who just gave birth. He doesn't seem to know." My mother-in-law was stunned into silence. Her face hardened as my words sank in. After a long pause, she stood up, muttering one last thing as she left. "Kids these days are so harsh." She left looking offended. That evening, Mark got a call from his mother and immediately started yelling at me for making things bigger. Then I got a text from my sister-in-law. "You should consider my mom's feelings too. She was trying to lecture me. I was furious. I wanted to throttle all of them, my husband, my sister-in-law, that whole crazy family. After that, Mark and I were in a full-blown Cold War. We only spoke when absolutely necessary. My mother-in-law stopped visiting. The baby wanted only me, day and night. I was alone in caring for our child, and eventually, I couldn't take it anymore. I went to my mom's house. I ended up staying there most of the time. I told my mom everything about Mark and his family. She listened patiently and tried to comfort me, but my heart wouldn't heal. Even though I was at my mom's, Mark never once called. I saw no reason to be the first to reach out. That small fight festered in my heart, growing into an unmanageable fire. I would spend 3 or 4 days a week at my mom's, and the rest at our apartment. By the time our baby was about 4 months old, things had gotten a little easier. Our daughter was starting to smile at faces and babble. She was also sleeping through the night more often after a full bottle, so childcare was less of a struggle. One day, Mark came home with a bag of takeout from a famous local dumpling spot. "Got some dumplings from that place downtown. Eat them if you want." "Oh, this place is famous. You must have waited in line." I was feeling hungry, perfect timing. It was out of character for him, but I didn't read too much into it. I just accepted his small gesture of goodwill. A few days later, he brought home a deep dish pizza. "I had a meeting in the city today and passed by that famous pizza place. Eat some if you want." "Wow, I've always wanted to try the pizza from here." "Great. Let's eat together." That day, we ate in silence. There was no conversation, but he poured my soda for me first and handed me a napkin when I spilled something. When the baby cried, he quietly went to check on her. Seeing this, I wondered if this was his way of showing he was sorry. From then on, we started having small, everyday conversations again. He even began to play with the baby for short periods. Naturally, I started spending fewer nights at my mom's house. Things weren't completely healed, but on the surface, we were getting by. I even started taking the baby to visit my in-laws occasionally. Around that time, our daughter started crawling. She would cry when her dad left for work and crawl to the door to greet him when he came home. "Ah, did my little girl miss her daddy? Look at you, coming to meet me. Say Dada, Dada." It's too early for her to talk yet, but she's been looking towards the front door all day. I think she was waiting for you. During that period, our daughter brought a lot of laughter into our home, which helped ease the tension between us. Then, Mark announced he was being sent on another overseas assignment. This time, it would be for 6 months. He would be back around our daughter's first birthday. It was for work, so I told him to go and be safe. I tried my best to be on good terms with him before he left. The move-in date for our new condo was scheduled during his assignment. As we were discussing the move, Mark said, "My office is downtown, and that new place is too far. It's over a 3-hour round trip. What if we sell the pre-construction contract and find a place closer to my work?" "You're right. A 3-hour commute is way too inefficient," I agreed. We decided to go that route. He told me to talk to his parents if anything came up, and I said, okay. With that settled, Mark left for his assignment. Once again, I was alone, shuttling between our apartment and my mom's house while taking care of our daughter. The days blurred together. About a month had passed when I got a sudden call from a friend. "Hey, didn't you say Mark was on an overseas assignment?" "Yeah. He's in Canada right now." "Why? Are you sure?" "I think I just saw him." "What are you talking about? You must be mistaken." "No. I saw him leaving his office building yesterday, and today I saw him having lunch near there. I'm positive it was him. He went right back into his building." I immediately tried calling Mark. He didn't pick up his regular call, but he answered a video call. He said he was in Canada, and the screen showed him working with a foreign colleague. However, the background was just a generic office, so I couldn't tell if it was really overseas or just downtown Chicago. Something felt wrong. I hired a private investigator to check things out, just in case I was misunderstanding something. When I got the results, I was utterly speechless. Mark wasn't overseas. There was no assignment. He was right here in Chicago, living in an apartment with another woman. I thought I was going to lose my mind. The investigator showed me photos and videos. Mark going to his office, his daily commute, and him entering and leaving an apartment building with another woman. There was no room for doubt. The investigator also showed me a video of Mark on the phone with someone, which I'll tell you about in a moment. I called Mark immediately. "I know everything. Get home now." Surprisingly, he came without a fight. The moment he walked in the door, I unleashed everything I'd been holding back. "How could you do this? I have proof of everything. Your commute, your route, the fact that you're living with another woman. I know it all. So don't even try to make excuses. Just explain." "Fine, since you know everything," he sneered. "Who would want you when you look so frumpy and unkempt after childbirth? You're good with money, but you have zero appeal as a woman. So I cheated. This is all your fault. Are you even human? You're saying you cheated because of me. Is it a crime that my body changed after having a baby? Is it my fault that I stayed up all night holding our child? And what did you do? Did you ever once hold her? Did you ever once make her a bottle? You didn't have the energy for that, but you had the energy to cheat? If you were a decent human being, the first words out of your mouth would be, 'I'm sorry.'" I barely stopped to breathe. "Whatever," he said. "You're always like this. I don't even want to talk to you anymore. Talking to you is suffocating." He packed up the rest of his things from the house and left. He went straight to her. Watching his back as he walked away, I knew with absolute certainty this man had no intention of fixing things, no desire to try again. It was over. I was shaking with rage. That day, our daughter was unusually fussy. I checked her temperature, and it was 102 degrees. My mind went blank. She had never had a high fever before, and I had no idea what to do. The first person who came to mind was Mark. I swallowed my pride and called him. "Do you know what that bastard said? Are you using this as an excuse to call me? I don't care if she has a fever or not. You deal with it." I could hear a woman's voice in the background. He was with his mistress, completely indifferent to his own daughter's health. In that moment, I couldn't believe this man was her father. I grabbed the baby and rushed to my mom's house. We went to the emergency room together. The diagnosis was bronchiolitis. The doctor warned it could turn into pneumonia if we weren't careful. Hearing that, my legs nearly gave out. In the midst of this chaos, my mother-in-law called. "Hey, you should sell that condo of yours for a quick profit. A home should be in the city. My son has such good judgment. You really hit the jackpot marrying him." Hearing her voice, something inside me snapped. I tried to keep my voice even. "Ma'am, if something needs to be sold, I'll handle it myself. Everything is fine for now. Why won't you sell it now? Why are you being so lukewarm? My son said it would be best to sell it now. Ma'am, you're going to be very surprised by what I'm about to tell you. You think your son is on an overseas assignment, right? Well, he's not. He's living with another woman he's having an affair with. He lied to the whole family about a 6-month trip. What? My son would never lie like that. Living in an apartment? That crazy bastard. Don't worry, dear. I'll talk to him and send him right back home. Ma'am, he's completely infatuated with that woman right now. But by all means, give it a try. At that point, I had nothing left to lose. My mother-in-law called Mark right away. A while later, she called me back, her voice frantic. I called him and told him to get his act together and go home right now. I screamed at him, but he just won't listen. She paused, then said something unbelievable. He said he was just planning to have some fun for 6 months and then come back. He said if we could just wait, he would come back and try to make things work. What should we do? I almost laughed. What? 6 months? And what about me? I'm supposed to just welcome him back with open arms after he's had his fun, as if nothing happened? I took a deep breath and told her the whole truth. Ma'am, do you know who this other woman is? She's an escort, in her early 20s, and they're not just dating because they like each other. Your son is paying her to be with him. He's paying her a monthly allowance. And you know where he got that money? He took out a loan. He was planning to pay it back with the profit from selling my condo. I heard a sharp gasp on the other end of the line. What? What are you saying? He's paying an escort? I pressed my advantage. This is all confirmed by a private investigator. He recorded Mark telling his friend all about it. I have photos of them, his daily route, everything. I have no intention of being involved with him anymore. Why should I forgive a man like that? What do I have to gain? No. Couldn't you just give him one more chance? I'll talk to him again, really knock some sense into him. I promise I'll bring him home. Just please, wait a little longer? I didn't answer. I just hung up, furious. At least my mother-in-law now understood the gravity of the situation, but she was the only one panicking. A few days later, Mark called me, probably after another earful from his mother. His voice was sharp with anger. What did you tell my mom to get her so worked up? I told you to just wait 6 months. What did I say? I told her the truth, that you're having an affair, that you're paying a young girl to be with you. And why on earth should I wait for you? You have no patience. You can't even wait 6 months? You really only think about yourself. I burst out laughing. It was just too absurd. Are you kidding me? Who's the selfish one here? You're the one who abandoned your home, your child, and is living with another woman based on a lie. And you have the nerve to say I have no patience? My voice rose. Listen carefully. I'm done being patient. I'm filing for divorce, and for the record, we are not selling the condo. If you thought I would just sit here and wait for you to come back after you've had your fun, you are seriously mistaken. He didn't reply. He either had nothing to say or wasn't listening. In that moment, it became crystal clear. This man had no intention of coming home, and no intention of seeing his child. That was all the confirmation I needed. I didn't hesitate. I immediately started the divorce proceedings. After that call, a strange sense of calm washed over me. I was past the point of crying and begging. This was not a man I could reason with. I immediately found a lawyer and started organizing my evidence. The PI's report on his affair, proof that he fabricated the overseas assignment, records of the loan he took out to pay the other woman, and a log of all the cruel things he had said and done. As I laid it all out, I couldn't believe this was the man I had married. My life was more messed up than any soap opera. I couldn't understand why I had to go through this. I just wanted to beat him senseless. The divorce papers were filed and served to him at his office. The atmosphere changed instantly. Strangely, it was my mother-in-law who reacted first, not Mark. The woman who had been shouting about bringing her son home and knocking sense into him completely changed her tune. Why are you blowing this up? You have a child. Can't you just be patient for a little while? She repeated this over and over, completely ignoring what her son had done, trying only to prevent the divorce. Listening to her, my anger boiled over. I cut her off before I said something I'd regret. "Ma'am, your son is the one who made me a divorcee. You should be saying this to him, not me. Because of your son, my child will grow up in a single-parent home. Because of your son, my child and I are the ones who are suffering. Do you understand?" But she kept insisting I should change my mind. How could she be so dense? "Don't say this to me. Go yell at your son. I am not coming back, so please stop calling me." I thought she had at least understood the situation, but she was just pouring gasoline on the fire. This family was driving me insane. I don't know if it was something his mother said or if he realized how badly the lawsuit was going for him. But one day, Mark contacted me. He said he was coming home. He said he had ended things and was moving back in. The ridiculous part was that the apartment was in my name, and I had already arranged to terminate the lease. We were supposed to be completely moved out in a few days. And on that exact day, he showed up. "All right, you win. I ended things and I'm moving back in now. Are you happy?" I just stared at him, stunned. "Are you insane? Happy about what? I don't need you. You clearly have no grasp of this situation. Do you think I'm doing this to get you back?" His expression changed. He really thought I was trying to reconcile. The idiot. "I'm divorcing you because you're a despicable human being and I can't forgive you," I said, my voice low and cold. "This isn't about teaching you a lesson. If you're this stupid, maybe you should ask someone for advice. And if you're going to beg, at least have the decency to be humble. You're not even good-looking, but you act like you're God's gift." He just stood there, speechless, which only made me angrier. "You were a worthless piece of trash from the beginning, and I was just too naive to see it. When you brought home those dumplings and that pizza, I was a fool to think it was an apology. I don't want to be in the same room with someone like you for one more second. Get out, now." That day, I unleashed every bitter word I had ever held back. Every curse word I knew came out. Logically, he was the one in the wrong. He had no right to say anything, but this bastard, who didn't even seem to understand what he'd done wrong, got angry at me for being angry. That drove me even crazier. "Wow, listen to you," he sneered. And he didn't stop there. "And for your information, that pizza and those dumplings, they weren't for you. I bought them to eat with my girlfriend, but someone was at her place that night so I couldn't go in. I just brought them home. Were you touched by that? They were never meant for you, so don't get any ideas. And I hate this dump of an apartment anyway. Fine, let's get a divorce. I made a mistake coming here." With that, he calmly packed his things again and left. That's when I knew for sure this man was born without a conscience. I tried to trace back my steps, to understand what I ever saw in him. I thought about that first meeting with his mother, when she deluded herself into thinking I brought a house to the marriage because her son was so special. Maybe I should have corrected her firmly right then and there. I kept replaying everything, trying to pinpoint where my judgment failed. I had built a successful career, earned respect, and saved money. Why was I treated this way in my own home? I even started to wonder if it was all my fault. But no matter how I looked at it, the seed of this disaster was planted that night when he cursed at me for asking him to make a bottle for our sick baby. I wasn't being unreasonable. There are plenty of husbands who work full-time and still handle night feedings. I reaffirmed to myself that I had done nothing wrong, told myself not to look back, and focused on the divorce. The result? Exactly as you'd expect. I took him for everything he had. I didn't fight with emotion. I fought with records and evidence. I made him pay for every single thing he did. I also sued the other woman. And you know what's funny? She apparently demanded that my ex-husband pay her settlement fee. When he told her he had no money, she dumped him on the spot. All their talk of love disappeared the second money was involved. A short time later, she texted me herself, telling me to come and get my pathetic, broke man. I guess she only realized she'd made a bad choice when he started begging her for money. And the condo? I didn't sell it. There was no reason to rush. I just held on to it. After the divorce, my mom, my daughter, and I moved into a larger home. Life didn't suddenly become easy. Raising a child was still a lot of work, and the days flew by. But my mind was clearer. There was no one to please, no toxic relationships to navigate. My day revolved around my daughter's well-being, then my mom's health, and finally, my own schedule. Once the complicated words and emotions were gone, I could finally breathe again. My career took off. I won the Employee of the Year award again that year. Even after the divorce, my ex-husband seemed to realize his fault, at least enough to take on the bare minimum of his responsibilities. He never once missed a child support payment. Strangely, it was as if a paternal instinct he never had before suddenly kicked in. He genuinely looked forward to his visitation days and seemed to cherish the time he spent with our daughter. We avoided seeing each other as much as possible, communicating only when necessary and without any emotion. I just sent the child support. Check it. I have a business trip this weekend, so I'll pick her up next weekend. Is 9 a.m. okay? Okay. Confirmed. She has a bit of a cold, so I was going to take her to the doctor anyway. Next week is better for me too. See you then. That was the extent of it. Just facts. Years passed like that. 2 years went by without any major incidents or emotional turmoil. In that time, I decided to sell the condo. I timed the market perfectly and sold it for a profit of over $250,000. My daughter had grown so much. She was walking and talking. She was an early bloomer in general. She started walking at 10 months, was clearly saying mama and dada around the same time, and was speaking in full sentences not long after. She had an incredible memory. She would quietly listen to adult conversations and then repeat them perfectly at the most unexpected times. One day, my mom and I were talking about the housing market at home. It was a casual conversation, but my daughter must have overheard and remembered it because she mentioned it to my ex-husband during one of his visits. After hearing about it, he started acting unusually friendly and over the top. I didn't realize at the time that his words were a prelude to something else. I heard from our daughter, "Wow, I had no idea the price would go up that much. You must have made a killing. If we were still together, we'd be rich." You know I don't need to hear that. Don't bring up the past. I have no desire to remember it. Okay, then let's forget the past and try to get along from now on. For our daughter's sake. Are you insane? That's a disgusting thing to say. Do you remember why we got divorced? I love my life now. Why would I ever want to go back to that hell? Don't you ever say that again. My sharp words seemed to get through to him. I was reminded once again that with him, you had to be blunt and harsh to set a boundary. But the problem wasn't just him. After the divorce, he had moved back in with his parents. He must have told them about the money I made from the condo, because one day, I got a call from my former mother-in-law. "The weather's getting colder, and I was just thinking of you and my granddaughter. I see her sometimes, but how have you been?" "I'm doing well, thank you. I got a promotion and a raise at work. Mom and I moved to a new house. We're doing just fine, but I don't think we're really on terms to be asking after each other, are we? You're so cold. You know, I always liked you. It's such a shame things didn't work out with my son. I heard you made over $250,000 on that condo. My son is drowning in debt from that loan he took out for that escort. If you two were still together, you'd be living happily without any money worries. I don't know how my son's life got so ruined. I tried to just let it go. Our relationship was over, and I didn't want any more drama. But my former mother-in-law had always had strange ideas, and once she started talking, she always crossed a line. It all comes down to meeting the right person. That's why marriage is so important. That's why a spouse is so important. The moment her words shifted that way, I knew where this was going. Here we go again. "Ma'am, are you implying this is all my fault?" I said. "I should be the one saying that. What harm did I ever do to your son? In fact, I was the one who met the wrong person and ended up divorced because of a cheating husband. The court officially ruled that he was the party at fault. And you still want to blame me? Well, it takes two hands to clap, doesn't it? You must have done something to make him act that way, right? So why don't you both just admit your faults and try to get along again?" Hearing that, I knew there was no point in talking. She was twisting logic to blame me for the affair and the divorce. This wasn't something I could fix with explanations. With people like her, facts are met with nonsense. I knew that arguing further would only fuel my anger, so without another word, I hung up. I responded with silence. Then I called my ex-husband and told him in no uncertain terms that from now on, neither his mother nor anyone else in his family was to contact me for any reason other than matters directly related to our child. After that, I never heard from his family again. In the meantime, my daughter has grown up before my very eyes. She speaks clearly and started preschool this past March. When I read to her, she pays close attention to the words, and she's already starting to recognize some letters. People around us say she's bright and has great comprehension skills, even suggesting we get her tested for a gifted program. It's not just her mind, her energy is boundless. She can run around all day without getting tired, and her physical development is ahead of her peers. To be honest, I used to worry that not having a father in the house would negatively affect her development. But she is growing up so well that those fears feel foolish now. I am just so grateful and relieved that she is growing up this healthy and strong. Now that I'm a parent, I understand that the greatest happiness is seeing your child thrive, and in turn, I want to show my own mother a daughter who is living well. In this way, I am growing, too. Looking back, I don't think a marriage is a relationship that can be sustained by one person's endurance and sacrifice. Marriage is about moving forward together, not a structure where one side is expected to give everything up. The moment love is used as an excuse to demand patience, and family is used as a reason to shift responsibility, that relationship is already broken. If you know someone who thinks that kind of one-sided marriage is normal, or who speaks of one partner's sacrifice as a virtue, please tell them, marriage is not an endurance test, it's a partnership. Dear listeners who have accompanied me until the end of my story, how did you find today's tale? I'm curious about the impression it has left in your hearts and the thoughts it has sparked in you. Please feel free to share your impressions and opinions in the comments. I will carefully read each of them. The likes and subscriptions you give me are the greatest source of strength and motivation for creating better stories in the future. Please don't forget to do so. I sincerely wish that your life is always filled with happiness and good fortune, and that the warm light in your hearts never fades.